Hi everybody, this is Karak with ACG, and welcome to another episode of Walking the Walk. And today we're going to go with LA Noire, which don't know what just happened there with the graphics. But anyway, basically, as everybody knows, LA Noire came out a couple years ago on the Xbox 360, PS3, and on the PC. Now this was a game that was originally going to be a Sony published title. 7 years prior to its release, that was the original plan. Over time, that didn't work out. Rockstar ended up picking it out. Let's just go ahead and see what we ended up getting. So one of the first things I think has to be absolutely mentioned before anything else is the 3D storefronts and the lack of repetition. The game does an incredible job. Call it clinical, call it antiseptic, call the world's atmosphere, whatever you want. The plain and simple fact is that right there looks effing sweet. That looks amazing, and this game is old, and that still looks absolutely phenomenal. You know, this game is massive now, 400 actors plus. You know, I think it was 25 gigs on a PlayStation 3 uncompressed Blu-ray. You know, it was massive. It's just a huge game, and a lot of that has to be these storefronts. This 3D storefront look is so cool compared to even now when we have a lot of games doing that copied texture over the front. Here you have these worlds. They look real. These look like places that people interact. Now here is the major problem I have with this game. Again, if in any way negative, don't take it that way. This is just simply a third person's viewpoint of this title, taking a step back and looking at it from sort of a faraway view and then also zooming in. The plain and simple fact is there is a massive separation between church and state, as I always say. But here, church is the sidewalk and state are the stores and houses. You will never see a person entering or exiting a store. You will never see a person standing looking into a storefront. You will never see a person barbecuing. You will never see a person getting their clothes off of a linen line. Those are probably the most egregious things that occur within this game world to make you feel as if you're separate. The plain and simple fact is all of Rockstar games have a certain feel to them. Now this is not the Rockstar engine. It is not the Rage engine. Bondi needed to go with a different engine so they could get their motion facial scanning technology in here. However, by doing that, there is obviously something else going on. One of those something else's is the fact that there is a complete separation and almost alien abduction that occurs the moment you come off of a sidewalk. Nobody is there, ever. It's completely empty. Now, a lot of games handle job systems differently. Skyrim handled it one way, Morrowind handles it another, GTA games all handle it differently, Red Dead as well. Life system, job system, whatever you may call it, artificial life. Basically, it's like the old Creatures games with the Norns in it. Characters do something specific throughout the day. There's nothing that happens in LA Noire like that. Nothing. Throughout the day, do you know what they all do? They fucking power walk everywhere. That's all these guys do, and it's very unfortunate because I actually really like this game. I think as a story, the story may be incredibly convoluted at times and have a couple time jumps, but the story was really interesting and the gameplay was interesting. However, Team Bondi made this massive world, and there's very, very little to do in it, and there's very little interaction between you and the game world. In fact, as we all know, if you've played Assassin's Creed even recently, and remember Assassin's Creed 1 was out when this came out. Matter of fact, 2 might have been out when this came out. I'll have to check my dates. The fact is, you have a title where everybody is simply walking. They're not in groups. They're not collected around doing activities. There is no activities. If you go past a toy store, if you go past anything like that, you won't see kids inside doing anything. You won't see kids at a park doing anything, just like we see on any Assassin's Creed. They're all just walking. And it feels in some way like Saints Row 3's little fake hologram version of this time era. And I think that that's highly unfortunate. Now let's listen to some sounds. Now, I was also fairly disappointed with the sounds as a whole in this game, especially walking sounds and stuff like that. Now, I get that, you know, everybody walking on cement. Cement isn't the most tonal of surfaces, but it really seems like a lot of the audio samples are fairly cut down in their bit rate. Now that might be because there's a whole hell of a lot going on in this world, and that's one of the places where they took some shortcuts. That's fine. Now we come up on this thoroughfare, and I think this is great. This is just one of the, look at that. That looks amazing. Of course, nobody's moving because the light's red, but still this area looks so beautiful. Unfortunately, nobody's doing anything. You got have some people sitting on some sidewalk benches, and that's it. You don't have any interaction with the world itself. In fact, graphically, you also don't. This is one of those games, one of the first ones with ambient occlusion, where that I remember at least, that you could click that little ticker, and the fact is they all look a little bit like a railroad, model set, where the building doesn't have contact shadows. You can see shadows there across the awning, but the actual contact shadows are missing, and that really lends a cardboard feel to the 3D world, and I think that that's also very unfortunate, especially for a title that had this much going for it. $50 million. Let's go up here. Let's see if they do anything. Sup, Cole Phillips here, reporting from the scene of your death. When it comes down to it, though, they worked so hard on this. $50 million, 7 years, 2 publishers, and nobody has a barbecue, and I find that sad. What's up?
Goddamn Harry thinks he could get fresh whenever he pleases.
So I was hoping she'd say something. She did. That's one of the problems I find with the game. This is one, as I said, one of the first games that made me feel separate from the game world. Red Dead doesn't do it. The GTAs don't do it, and I find that that's very sad to me. And I think one of the major reasons is, without those groups, without those people engaging in different activities, Bondi for some reason decided what they were going to do is have them say something to me. Here, I'm going to just see where I am. You can tell how long this is going to be. Look at that. 6 minutes. We've walked like 2 blocks. It's a big world. It's a massive world. One thing to remember is this game world is actually 8 square miles, 2 square miles larger than GTA 4. And somebody will have to put in the comments what GTA 5's is, or I will go in and do that in the description. Plain and simple, the game is massive. They went through and they took 110,000 plus pictures of the game world. Here's where I think Team Bondi might have had made a mistake. And again, this is just my opinions. I'm not even saying I know better than them. I'm just saying, as a person looking at this title and seeing some of the problems with it, and remembering that this title, $6 or $8 right now on Steam, is well worth that purchase price for the story alone. So if you guys think I dislike this game, you're absolutely wrong. But when it comes to the open world aspect, there are a serious number of problems. One of the problems is this. They took 110,000 plus pictures, and they were really happy about that. They were really prideful about how much realism they got in the game world. Here's a problem. They also used those pictures of the city streets to create traffic patterns and flows, and I think that makes sense in some ways. But you lose, when you do that stuff, the attention to detail detracts from the living chaos that is life, and that living chaos is missing. Remember that I said that right now. 8 minutes in, 7 minutes in, whatever, the living chaos is missing. And think about that as we continue to play, and you will see it is. There is nothing, there is no chaos. It is complete, utter order. And I think that that's why a lot of game players consider this, antiseptic, clinical, too clean of a game world. And it's true. Here on the left, you have these awesome looking, city buildings and houses. They look amazing. There's no interaction with them. They did so much, and nothing really occurs, and I think that that's very sad. Texture-wise, I think the game is fairly good. I think, it's obvious that the sidewalk and the grass here is fairly low texture, and you guys know me, I despise having a texture without some polygon grass there, but this is a title from many years ago. This is completely normal for a title, and the resolution that they're using is fairly okay for a title of this year. See if this guy says anything. Oh, hey, Chinese theater? Yeah, let's go up there. So one thing I did like about the game, there's a lot of these larger land, like, I guess, special landmarks, and so I think this is one of the Chinese theaters. Let's see what it says. I really like this. And again, on the right, you can see those really cool storefronts, 3D storefronts. Excellent job there. There is no reflection in your character. I get that. People are going to probably mention that right away, but for this era, that's fine. Graham's Theater. Yeah, that's so cool. I got an intuition point that I can use. Very cool. Like that right there, you take a picture, desaturate that a little bit, and you have yourself a cool, I would post that on my wall. That's very, very cool. So when it comes down to it, like I said, this engine is different than any other engine that Rockstar did. So we know that they took 110,000 pictures. We know that they used that to create the traffic flow, and that might have created some of the clinicalness of it. The reason why they did that, and I get it, is because of the motion scan technology that they did. Now that's the cameras recording your mug basically for this game. Basically what happened is they decided that they wanted a different style of motion capture. So they had the characters do the physical actions and then later brought them into a room. There's 30 plus cameras and they had them read their lines. Now I'm going to get to a narrative of why that might have caused some issues in the investigative game. But the first thing I want to discuss here is the fact that now motion scan, or this kind of motion scan, will probably never be used again. In fact, it's been replaced by, this is going to sound dirty, but there's no other way for me to describe this. But the new type of facial scan looks like someone ended up at the end of an adult movie with someone's glow-in-the-dark sperm all over their face. I mean, it sounds gross, but there's no. If you see pictures, Rise of the Tomb Raider is one of the first ones I saw this on, and it basically shows the girl playing Laura and her face is just spattered with this stuff, and it just looks so odd. I think it's obviously some kind of spray paint with, you know, and the cameras can track that. Well, with motion scan, they did something different. They took, you know, these 30 plus cameras and they recorded them in this bright light. However, there's some problems with the motion scan. First of all, it doesn't allow for shading changes like you would expect on most textures, and that's why a lot of the faces don't really reflect the light that's occurring within the game world very well. And so what you get is somebody's face looks like it's wrapped around the skull of somebody else. In the end, you got hyper-realistic emotions, hyper-realistic facial movements, but the human eye is so keen and so good at looking at something and finding out if it's not real or if it is real. And the fact is that even though those looked amazing when it comes to their muscle movement, the lighting never really caught on. In fact, it's also used here when you're walking around. You're going to see some Medusas. What's this, Max Factory? You're going to see some Medusas, men and women, that just look highly creepy because they used a lower resolution of those motion scans of their faces. And it looks like a bunch of people driving people around like skin cars, as they said in Slither. So when it comes down to it, we can talk a little bit about the people and stuff like that. So Aaron Stanton is basically the guy who plays Cole Phillips and probably has the hottest wife known to man. And I know a lot of people don't like, you know, people mentioning that kind of stuff. But Connie Fletcher, who plays his wife in the game, is also his wife in real life. And just a hotness boulevard for me for some reason. I saw her picture back in the day when he was doing it, and they were both showing up in the game, and I was like, damn, guy's lucky dude. She plays his wife in this. She disappeared after this. I think she just did this after some let's see, what was it? Some soap operas. He is continuing on doing some smaller projects. I haven't seen him in anything big. I thought he did a really good job. Then you have Michael McGrady. You have Gil, I think is how they pronounce it. It might be Jill, but you have Gil McKinney as Jack Kelso as well. You have all these really cool people who are doing it. But the plain and simple fact, and I think we're actually walking right up to it. This is perfect timing. John Noble, baby. Walter from Fringe. He's up there on the billboard. Underused in this title, but one of the best actors ever. He's in this as well. 400 actors. Really, really cool that they got all those people. And boxes. 400 actors plus 8 boxes. But I think they did a really good job with their actors' choices. I think that Aaron did a spectacular job. However, this is where we discuss some of the problems with motion scanning. People have stated, oh man, Aaron Stanton as Cole Phillips overacts all the time. Well, that's probably because most people do not understand that when you are in the interrogation phase, the game you are playing is not the game that was recorded originally, or recorded for originally. Originally, it was coerce, force, and lie. Later changed to truth, doubt, and lie. Now, the reason why is because one is very proactive and one is more reactive, like a detective. Between Bondi and Rockstar, no one knows who made this decision. The decision was made to change those choices. Now, I think that was a valid decision. However, this is already a $50 million game without re-recording the voices, but boy, I wish they had. The reason why you guys see the overacting on Cole Phillips' part and not so much on everybody else's is because he is reacting to either coerce or force or lie, basically coercing the person or forcing the person. And those are the two that distinctly match up with Truth and Doubt, and that people are always freaking out going, I picked Doubt. Why'd he freak out on this guy? I don't get it. Like, he's overacting. He's not. He's reacting to force or coerce, depending on which one it was tracked to. They decided to not re-record those vocal cues. And that's why you get the overacting. That's why you get... Actually, a lot of people felt that the motion scanning, I think, got hurt a little bit as a technology purely because they did not re-record those voices, and you see that overreaction that occurs. So you have a lot of work that went into it, and unfortunately, between the two companies, they degenerated into almost hating one another, and Bondi, of course, disintegrated and was purchased by somebody else, and Rockstar, in the end, I don't think they ever planned on working with Team Bondi again. Originally, these guys were star-crossed lovers, and they thought the world of each other, but at the end, a lot of changes happened, and sometimes you have to wonder, that change happened, right? That's a pretty big change. They changed the entire way the game plays. All of the emphasis of your discussion has changed. It makes me wonder as well if Rockstar was generally unhappy with the world's size and lack of things to do. One of the things that we know about the title, and you see this in the cars passing by, there are almost 95 cars, I think, that were modeled. I think it's almost 100. There were almost 100 cars that were modeled for this. And funny enough, Jay Leno, of all people, let Team Bondi into his collection of cars, and I believe almost all of the cars in the game are modeled after his, because I think he owns 300 or some if you include various motorbikes and airplanes. But he loves period piece style vehicles, and a lot of them were from this time frame. So Team Bondi was able to go in and able to model these vehicles. So what you have is a lot of technical prowess. If you go back to what we've talked about, you have the motion scanning, pretty insane, really cool, very technical, right? You have a very, very, very large game. You have 400 actors, and now you have these clinically modeled vehicles within the game. And it's almost like somebody said, well, we got to have something first. We got to have a place for them to explore and experience this, so we're going to make the game world massive. However, they forgot to add the game in there. One of the major things you can do is, of course, you can look for hidden vehicles around, and that's great and everything. There are a couple, but there's, of the 95 so odd cars within the game, only like 10 or 12 are hidden. So there's not a lot to do there. And so what you get is this very clinical game that you got a lot of people complaining about.
You are so bad.
See, stuff like that happens. I mean, you have all these vocal cues, all these different things occurring. Whoops. Didn't mean to push that. I mean, this world's massive. Look how far I went. Look how far I went in this time. I mean, that's insane. That's insane how big the world is. And in a bit, I'll show you guys all of it, but it's about 10 times this size. Shaped a little bit like a Florida askew, I guess, is the way you describe it. And I don't think anybody is really aware of why they decided to make it so large. It reminds me a little bit of the Mafia games, where at times, you'd be wondering what exactly you were supposed to do. See, nothing. Nothing happens. There is a reason why that is, and I get it, especially at the time frame. But again, you also have things like everybody looking the same. You have a bunch of douchebags with fedoras on. The plain and simple fact is that was the time, that was what people wore and what people looked like. But it doesn't allow, even for let's say, a Red Dead style of diversity within character class. You just don't see that in this title. And then the lack of interaction between things like the street and these houses causes everything to feel like it happens on the sidewalks. Something else you guys are going to notice as we continue to play is that there is an incredible number of people. There's a good number of people. In fact, it's one of the few games I've been very happy with the number of people on the street. However, they're doing nothing. And again, that adds that clinical feeling. Just walk down here for a second.
The heck?
There's just...
refuses to accompany me to church.
See what she says.
Grown men playing at being bored.
Yeah, they're all just one-lining you, and it becomes very disconnected. It actually helps in pushing you out of the fiction, which is very sad, because within the story itself, that fiction is all about Cole Phelps, and they do such a good job. I love this look at this house. You aren't reflected in that, but boy, that just looks really good. Everything about it, okay. From a graphic standpoint, again, you saw his face. popping a little bit, and that's because, you know, it doesn't take in the light from the game world itself, and so you get these shadowed faces that occur. Here at the park on the left, nobody's doing anything, but you have this fully modeled, excellently shadowed park. And I think, in a way, many people might look at this title and go, "Oh, hey, the graphics aren't that good." No, that's not correct. In fact, in the past, it did come out. See if she was going to say anything. It's a 30 frames per second game originally. They patched it to 60. There was a hack to get to 60, but it turned all the cards into bobsleds. Cars into bobsleds.
Good and tight come Friday.
What? She said she's going to get good and tight. I'm going to have to look that up because it obviously doesn't mean what I think it means. Oh, this is cool. So I've never seen this. This is one of the things that I love doing about, you know, doing in these walking the walks is you always find something. In Red Dead, it was the guys smoking near the explosives, and now it looks like a depleted house in the middle of moving. Can't get in though. Still, very cool. But it is an exercise in frustration, really, when you're doing this and seeing so many misused assets within a title. There's so much that could be had and done. Unfortunately, I think that they got caught up in the fact that Cole Phelps is a police officer. Now, originally, the idea was that Cole Phelps was going to be able to turn somewhat bad and actually end up having to fight off the cops in sort of a good guy or a fallen kind of thing, or a falling down kind of moment where you go bad. Whether it was Team Bondi, again, or Rockstar who kiboshed that, they did kibosh it. It isn't possible. And if it had been possible, you know, it would have been cool to play as Cole Phelps as some type of crime lord. Now, I love this. When you get into the slightly lesser, I guess, income areas, you'll start to see that they don't fill in their yards. And I think that that's a cool attention to detail. One thing Team Bondi matched, I think, the attention to detail that most Rockstar games do. They just didn't meld it together like I think everybody expected. Again, the game's $7, $8, I think, for all the DLC and the title. Don't for a second think that I don't think it's worth it. I just think that the open world is very lacking. I like how you can hear the electricity crackle and the electric engine.
I survived the war for this.
And again, not anybody walking to their vehicles. Nobody gets in or out of their vehicles ever. That's what's crazy. If you play this game for multiple hours, you will never see somebody park a vehicle and get out of it. Ever. It doesn't happen. And there, again, every separate part, it's almost like they have a thread in the CPU. One thread running characters driving cars, one thread running characters walking, one thread running, you know, Cole Phelps and what he's doing, and never the twain shall meet. You know, it's impossible to allow them to meet, and I think that that's really too bad. There's just too many separations that occur in the title. But I'll tell you what, right now, walking into this area with these vehicles parked here, again, some desaturation, take a picture of that, maybe find a way to remove that HUD. It's very, very cool. Now, you guys hear me talk about the transition between classes. The transition between classes doesn't always happen in architecture. It happens most of the time, but for example, if you are accustomed to, let's say, San Francisco versus other cities, you might see in San Francisco just an incredibly nice place right next to a really down and out place. It depends on how building was done at the time and what's occurred there. And then in other cities, especially smaller cities, you might see more of a zoning out where you see more of an actual correction that's slowly occurring, where it's going from middle class to upper class to lower class. It's a little bit easier to see. In this game, you know, we know that they took those 110,000 pictures, and we know that that helped them with the traffic flow. But unfortunately, it depends. There are some places here where I feel that the transition from upper class to lower class is done very organically and exactly the way you would expect. And other times I was sort of surprised by how poor it was. It really just depends on the location. I'm assuming that they are doing it accurately from the pictures. What is this? Whoa, what? I have no clue what just happened. Hey, buddy, you lost your hat. Okay, don't get it. This cop. So this is the first time we've seen any kind of true anarchy going on in the city. And it's not even anarchy. It's just a cop car with what are you guys doing here? Oh, wait. First time I've ever seen this. that is my partner. And I left him at the starting of the game so I could do this walking the walk. I've never seen that happen. I didn't know that could happen. Awesome. Okay, so that's cool. You know, a little added tidbit. I wouldn't call it realistic or unrealistic, but the fact is that I left him, you know, however long ago when I started doing the walking the walk, and now he's caught up with me. He got a police ride. Very. See what he says.
You think that's funny? Driving off and leaving me behind?
See, it's that interaction right there. It's that interaction with the character and that interactivity with the characters on the team, even with just the world, that is so rare in this title. And it's so sad because that kind of stuff, you know, just happens one time. And then I do stuff like that and they say nothing. You know, there's such a lack of that interaction. I really wish the title had one more year and possibly had some, you know, assistance from maybe some of the people on some of the other GTA games, some of the GTA games, who really could have walked them through what it's like and made them understand that their character should be able to walk up and open this fucking door right here. Or go to this garage. There are just no people. It always makes me feel like I'm in the Matrix and it's slowly falling apart around me, and at some point, and there was a little glitch right there, and at some point we're just going to see behind the screen and it'll be the Wizard of Oz doing a bunch of crank with some hookers. This is very cool looking though, drawing a little bit farther away. Graphically, I think the game runs really well. You know, you can run it pretty much in whatever way you want. If you have NVIDIA, ATI, you can of course do all kinds of super sampling, down sampling, and stuff like that. It was never the best game engine. Again, there was the 30 frames per second issue, which now has been patched, and I think that that's cool. Resolution-wise, you know, I think the game is fine. Texture-wise, I think that they've done a fairly good job. Unfortunately, the more you crank it, the more you look at things, the more you realize just how little is occurring in the game world. I love that right there. Look at this map. Look at that. That's the blue car up there in the top left right now. There's me. And we're now at like 26 odd minutes, 27 odd minutes. It's just barely covered anything. Like I said, 8 square miles. You know, understanding just how big the game is. The fact is, you get in a car. I remember when I first got this game, I jumped in a car and decided I was going to drive from one end to the other, and it was quite a long drive. I mean, you know, now I think we see this kind of stuff happening more GTA 5, but GTA 5 filled that game world with things to do. Maybe too many, depending on what your thought process is, but still handled it pretty well. You know, one of the things that the developers have gone on the record of doing, and I think that they did a really good job, and you see it in the single player, a little less in the open world stuff, but is the fact that, you know, they took so many inspirations from the Untouchables, Black Dahlia, LA Confidential, all that kind of stuff. They did a really good job, especially within the you know, single player scenes where they had a lot of the intrigue that goes on, you know, police officers, you know, turning bad. At that time, I mean, it wasn't even half as rampant as now, and so when it happens, it was such a big deal to have people truly on the take, and it did happen. And I think that they do a really great job. If you guys get a chance, you really want to play the single player of this, it's absolutely worth playing. It's just, don't drive around thinking that something will happen. Now, you can end up getting in the vehicles, and if you get in a police vehicle, they will have a scanner, and you can do one type of, I guess basically one or two types of random encounters, which are, you know, like car chases, random thuggeries and stuff like that, which I think is cool. Unfortunately, I think the timeline just sort of screwed them on a lot of the randomness. I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, you can't do much. You're going to have, you know, Cole Phelps walk people home from school and shit. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that at this time frame, you didn't have the personal power a police officer has now. For example, if this was a game now, they'd have their cell phone and their radio and all this stuff. They'd have, you know, the ability to do all this stuff. It's a one-man walking computer with a gun. Now it's a guy with a fedora and a revolver. Now, when it comes to graphics a little bit, we can talk somewhat about the animation as well. You know, you do have this awesome motion scanning, but I felt that the animation itself, which they recorded via the actors, just doesn't meld that well sometimes. The leaping over fences I thought was really well done, but when it comes to things like fighting, I thought the fighting in the single player game, you do some fighting, not a lot, but you do some fisticuffs. It just really didn't look that good. I was really unimpressed. How you doing? Oh, that's his wife in real life, by the way. That model of that girl walking away. because that's the same model. So they copy characters, as you can see on the right. That's not actually my partner from the later cases, but it's his face and everything. So the guy in the back in the peach colored is my partner. So the girl on the far or on the right now in the light brown, that's his wife in real life, and they've just copied her face and put it on somebody. And again, you can see it just doesn't handle lighting very well. You see a couple Rusties walking around, a couple Gills. I think that's so cool that you can see like your partner walking around as somebody else. Again, though, in a weird way, when you think about it, that adds that Matrix feeling. Let's cross this.
Phelps, I think his name is. He brought in the case of that poor lady killed near City Hall.
Yeah, and that's again one of those problems, you know. They just speak. They just talk out. They don't talk to one another. There is nobody walking together. You don't even see many hand-in-hand female, male, you know, like a husband and wife walking anywhere. And I think that's so sad. You know, this romanticized time period is the perfect time period where you could have had that kind of stuff. And there's nothing. And additionally, once again,
seemed like a decent guy.
and he just randomly says something. Once again, you have so many characters on screen at once. It can't be that. That can't be the problem. It has to exist somewhere else. There has to be a problem somewhere else that stopped them from doing it.
Extra, read all about it.
Didn't see where that guy was.
If that hill won't buy me something now.
What's up, brother? This looks cool over here. Excuse me. Did such a great, again, just such a great job with the interplay of light and shadow here. The Hollywood sign up there. Even though it actually looks like it has like a bunch of L's and a bunch of extra O's. I don't know. That must be a graphics glitch of some kind. The 3D storefronts. It is so funny. Even now, like I said in the prior, you know, a lot of games still do that storefront that's the crappy just texture that's on front. And here you have that 3D storefront. It just does such a great job. Just adds so much texture to the universe and to the world itself. But again, not a single person walking back here. All of these places. Joan's Pants, Safeway, sells for less. I wonder if that's the original Safeway that's now. That'd be interesting. This unique place, nothing happening. What's even sadder is hopefully we'll get to a down and out place, and I'll show you. You know, it's funny because the characters, like I've said in the past, I guess coveralls are considered lower class here in LA Noire because most characters are dressed like he is in some kind of finery, and then you get into some of the poorer run districts, and it's like they just throw some overalls on them and call it good. And I found that funny. I don't think I have this car. Let me just see if this opens up. This is a new game save, so yeah. Again, perfectly modeled vehicle. Love the models of the vehicles. I just think I almost wish there were more hidden, so that there was more of a reason to go around. Here, I'm just going to start all of your vehicles, warm them up, you know, so that when you decide to go to lunch, got a nice warm-up car. We'll just start each one.
You seem distracted.
You seem distracted.
We recovered.
Oh, man. But it is funny because if you've played this game in the past and you're just now looking at this video, I don't know if it hits you like it hits me, but there's such a nostalgia eye that occurs in these titles. I never really realized just how empty the game world was until right now. And I'm doing this and I'm like, holy crap, this is not what it felt like when I first played it. Because of course, back then, aside from GTA 4 and a couple other titles, True Crime, you know, game worlds were fairly like this. I mean, this isn't incredibly shocking to see.
Jesus, Cole, what's wrong with a good old-fashioned black and white?
Now that's one of the things I like. All of the partners, all of the characters that travel with you will react to the vehicle you get in, you know, positively or negatively. And so if you get into a lower class vehicle, they'll actually do stuff like that, where he actually, you know, says something like, I don't want to be seen in that vehicle. The storefronts are so great looking. I mean, it's such a cool world. It really does, in a way, disappoint me that they couldn't figure out what to do in it. You know, I mean, there's so much texture to the world itself. So many things going on. I mean, everything from the signs. This right here, like you don't have a mission, right, where you run in there and you bust up some people who were, you know, selling fucking cigarettes when they shouldn't be, or something like that. I mean, there isn't enough of that kind of stuff, and I wish there was.
She wants a 5-star goddamn.
Oh God. That's a comment you'll hear all the time. It's one of the overused one. He or she wants a 5-star wedding, and you'll hear it constantly. I don't know if it was a bug in the game or what, but every other comment that's said, you probably hear 1/10 of the time. That she wants a 5-star wedding is said like 8,000 times. And so when I remember first time playing this, just being like, oh my God, this one chick must just be trying to marry everybody or something.
Good looking for a policeman.
That's another thing. They're on his jock. This dude, if I acted 1/10 as horny as the chicks in this video game, when I'm walking like down a street, I would be accosted and arrested for like some kind of visual assault. These chicks are all up on his crap the entire time he's walking around. It's hilarious. That's very cool looking. Look at that. Look at that. What do we got? One person. Hey, there was one person walking over there. Nobody. Just alien abduction. I love that look though. Reflections are so well done. Unfortunately, on the left there, you can see there's a lot of issues with the shadowing, but it doesn't detract too much. Under the batteries and clutches there, on that line there, you can see some issues with the anti-aliasing and the ambient occlusion as well. But it's nothing that detracts so much that you can't enjoy it. You just notice it regardless, and you know, especially on a PC now, that should all be cleaned up. But unfortunately, it isn't. A lot of the ambient occlusion's baked in. It looks like actually too, or none. Oh, that's floating. That wasn't even connected to the fucking ground. All right, let's look at the map here. That looks unique. I don't remember ever going there. Is that just tens and tens and tens of houses? Santa Monica Boulevard. God, I can't remember half of this. Let's Now, one thing you guys will notice is this game doesn't have a waypoint arrow line system. It just has the point itself highlighted. When you're doing this, it will on major missions, I believe, but on just when you do a custom, there isn't any actual, line indicating where you need to go. Now, there's also very few dead ends in this title, so it's not a big deal. I love the look. What is this? Christmas ornament or something here on the tree? I have no clue what that is. It looks like some type of ornament. Do I have this car? It's even rare to see cars in driveways. I don't know if you guys have realized, but there's it's very rare. It's only once or twice. Now, there is no daylight cycle here, by the way. The missions happen in the day or happen at night. They're a little bit like Unity, except you can't choose. Unity, you could choose, but then it would stay at a certain time. In this game, unlike Syndicate and other titles, it's just daytime the entire time, or at least it only went to night when certain missions occurred.
I saw his picture in the paper. He worked that case. The lady that was cut up like a dahlia.
Someone ought to take him home.
Someone ought to take him home. Man, I wish chicks talked like me like that. I do like all the particle effects for smoking and stuff. It's actually done really well. So here we go. Here's one of these places. Idyllic. It looks so great. There could easily be somebody out here hanging. It looks like you got a husband, wife, looks like a boy and a girl. So why is somebody out there sometimes not, hanging up stuff? Why are people not here building? There's something missing, right? It's almost like there's a full class of worker class missing. Imagine being some kind of human, astronaut, you land on an alien planet that's copied the 1940s. You land and you look around. You're like, there's an entire class that's missing within this world, and that's the workers. There's no workers. Even in the railroad areas and stuff like that, there's no workers. They're just people in coveralls.
Say, could I borrow some of that mascara?
I don't even know what that means. Oh man. Maybe she thought I was J. Edgar Hoover. You know, to me, one of the saddest things is that we have these games. Sleeping Dogs is another one that's come up from a company that isn't Rockstar. You see Rockstar really nailing it all the way back. I think we'll go all the way back. I think GTA 3 was really where it started. For a lot of people, it started in Vice City or even San Andreas, but let's just say GTA 3 really started it, where you saw these interactive worlds come about. And it's sad because Sleeping Dogs, I think, did a fairly good job, but overall, we just haven't seen that mimicked. So, unfortunately, because the world's so big, I decided I'd go ahead and fast forward us until we got to a larger city area, which I think is important for us to actually look at some of this. Here's some things that amaze me. First of all, the fact is the frame rate doesn't lower at all. This is depending on where you are, whether you're in those more rural areas like we were, or here in the city. I thought the transition is done fairly well into the city, but it's actually not the best. It's one of the worst. It's done. I'll just say this: it's done okay. It's not as done as well as I would like when you enter a place like this. But the frame rate's really good. There's a lot of really cool locations, stuff like that. And some copies here on the left, you see the same bar windows that were done, at the very starting of the game. I'm just going to go through this slow so you guys can see some of the different things that are going on here. Ooh, got my wheels. But you see all these really cool, I think really cool places. There is a definite overall different feel here, but there are two things that I think are instantly noticeable. One, there is no increase of people. It's identical. Now that could be because there were too many people in the rural areas. It's totally possible, but there is no change there. And two, once again, you see no interaction of items and people, and I think that's even more harmful to the title now when we're in a busy city area than it would ever be in those rural areas. Even, not seeing somebody barbecue is one thing, but nobody's doing anything. They are pretending as if the sidewalks are nothing more than transits between point A to B. There's no shopping going on. There's no any kind of interaction. And with such a unique game world like this, I think that's really sad. So, you know what? I don't have much more to cover. What I'm going to do is go ahead and end it here. It's a fairly cool world. I would say it's actually one of the coolest open worlds I've ever seen. Unfortunately, technically and artistically, it's missing some things. Artistically, it's missing animations to match characters doing things within the game world. There's just not a lot going on. There's, a street vendor there, but there's nobody shopping, nobody doing work when there's construction areas and stuff like that. And certainly no groups of people talking and sort of discussing things and being social. And instead you have that thing where you feel sort of like the odd man out, like everybody's presenting for you. That's the way it feels, like everybody's sort of running a movie for you and you're not really interacting with the world. And I think that that's very sad. As a title, technically, there's a lot of cool stuff going on. I think that it's one of the most misused open worlds, though, that I've ever seen. Now, that being said, do I think this game is worth it? This is not a rating, but I'll just say this. If you guys get a chance, it's hard to talk and drive a sim, but if you guys get a chance, buy the game. $7 on Steam, absolutely phenomenal title when it comes to the single player action, the single player story, sorry. I keep saying single player as if there's a multiplayer, there isn't. But you get that just incredibly cool story that goes on, and I think it's very well done. You get to see all the technology, but as an open world title, it's barely open world. I would say as an open world title, it just actually, well, it isn't. So anyway, that's it for me. I hope you guys like these videos. They're fun to do. If you don't, I get it. Give it a thumbs down. If you do, give it a thumbs up. Maybe tell some people. I'd appreciate you tell people on Twitch, Twitter, whatever, Facebook. That's it for me. Peace out. Nothing like drifting in a 1940s vehicle. Sup, buddy? Jay Leno, eat your heart out. I'm fucking up your car. Oh. Police. We gotta get somewhere. Excuse me. Police. On a trip. I like how your partner doesn't say anything. He's like, this fucker's never been able to drive. It's not even that big of a surprise to me. Here we go. Let's do it. What's up? Ah! He's gone mad. Hey, at least they react to this. He's gone completely crazy. This thing, I'm trying to get it to drift. It's more of a power slide with some control.
Look where you're going.
I like how I barely hit that at like 3 miles an hour. He puts his hands up. All right, guys. Peace out.